I still remember the exact moment I knew something was different about the way Marcus looked at me that last morning. We were standing in my kitchen, the early light filtering through the half-open blinds, casting these long shadows across the hardwood floor. He had his coffee mug halfway to his lips, and he just stopped, frozen, like he was trying to memorize something he knew he was about to lose. That's the thing about goodbyes, right? The real ones. They have weight. They hang in the air like smoke, and you can feel them settling into your bones before anyone even says the words. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me back up, because this story doesn't start with that goodbye. It starts 3 months earlier, on the most unremarkable Tuesday of my life, in a coffee shop I'd been going to for 2 years without anything interesting ever happening. I was 26, working a job I didn't hate, but definitely didn't love, living in a one-bedroom apartment that cost too much for what it was. My life had this comfortable numbness to it, like I was walking through everything with the volume turned down. I dated here and there, mostly guys I met on apps, mostly encounters that fizzled out after a few weeks because neither of us could find anything real to hold on to. That Tuesday, I was sitting in my usual corner spot at Common Grounds, laptop open, pretending to work on a presentation while actually scrolling through nothing important. And then the chair across from me scraped against the floor. I looked up, ready to give whoever it was the polite but firm, "This seat's taken" line, even though it obviously wasn't. But the words died in my throat. He was tall, maybe 6'1", with dark hair that looked like he'd run his hands through it too many times that morning. He had these eyes that were somewhere between brown and green, depending on the light. And right then, in the afternoon sun streaming through the window, they were the color of honey. He wore a faded band t-shirt under a jacket that had seen better days, and he had this energy about him, like he was carrying something heavy but trying not to show it. "Sorry," he said, and his voice had this slight rasp to it, like he'd just woken up or maybe had been talking too much. "Everywhere else is full. Mind if I sit here? I promise I'm not one of those people who talks on phone calls in coffee shops." I should have said yes. I should have gone back to my fake work and let him be a stranger who sat across from me for an hour and then disappeared into his own life. Instead, I smiled and said, "Only if you're also not one of those people who chews really loudly." He laughed and something in my chest shifted. Just slightly. Just enough to notice. "Marcus," he said, setting down his cup and extending his hand. "Alex," I replied, shaking it. His grip was warm and firm, and he held on just a fraction of a second longer than necessary. We didn't talk much that first day. He pulled out a notebook, actual paper, and started sketching something. I watched him from the corner of my eye, the way his hand moved across the page with this confident fluidity, the way he'd pause sometimes and stare at nothing, like he was waiting for inspiration to find him. When I finally packed up my stuff to leave, he looked up and said, "Same time tomorrow?" It wasn't really a question, it was an invitation, and I knew, even then, that accepting it meant something. "Yeah," I said, "same time tomorrow." That became our routine. Every Tuesday and Thursday, 2 o'clock, same table. We started talking more, small things at first. He told me he was an artist, freelance, which meant he was broke more often than not, but at least he was broke doing something he loved. I told him about my marketing job, how I'd fallen into it because I was good with words, but wasn't sure it was what I wanted to do forever. "What do you want to do?" he asked me one afternoon, about 2 weeks in. No one had asked me that in years, not seriously, not like they actually wanted to know the answer. "I don't know," I admitted. "I used to write, stories mostly, nothing published or anything, just for myself. But I stopped somewhere along the way." "Why'd you stop?" I shrugged, uncomfortable with the question, with how it made me look at parts of myself I'd been avoiding. "Life, I guess. Work. It felt like a kid's dream, like something you're supposed to grow out of." Marcus set down his pencil and looked at me with this intensity that made me feel seen in a way that was both terrifying and thrilling. "That's bullshit," he said simply. "The things we love aren't kids' dreams. They're the things that make us feel alive. Everything else is just noise." I wanted to kiss him right then, right there in that coffee shop with 20 other people around us. I wanted to lean across the table and press my lips to his and tell him that no one had ever made me feel like my abandoned dreams mattered before. But I didn't, because I wasn't sure. About him, about me, about what was happening between us in these stolen afternoons that felt like they existed outside of real time. The shift happened gradually, then all at once. Our knees started touching under the table. His hand would brush mine when we both reached for the sugar. We started texting between our coffee shop days, just random thoughts and photos and jokes that only made sense to us. And then one Thursday, 6 weeks after we met, he asked if I wanted to get dinner instead of coffee. Like a date? I asked, my heart hammering so hard I was sure he could hear it. Yeah, he said, and there was something vulnerable in his eyes, something that told me this question cost him something to ask. Like a date. We went to this tiny Italian place in his neighborhood, the kind with checkered tablecloths and candles and wine bottles, and a waitress who called everyone Han. We talked for 3 hours. He told me about growing up in a small town where being different meant being invisible, about moving to the city 5 years ago with nothing but a duffel bag and a lot of hope, about the art he wanted to create and the person he wanted to become. I told him things I hadn't told anyone, about feeling like I was watching my own life from the outside, about the loneliness that had become so constant I'd stopped noticing it, about being scared that I'd wake up at 40 and realize I'd never actually lived. When we left the restaurant, we walked slowly through the streets, neither of us ready for the night to end. He grabbed my hand, lacing his fingers through mine, and it felt like the most natural thing in the world. "Can I kiss you?" he asked when we reached my apartment building. "I've been waiting for you to ask that for weeks," I said. He smiled, and then his lips were on mine, and everything else fell away. The kiss was soft at first, tentative, like we were both making sure this was real. Then it deepened, became more urgent, and I felt something unlock inside me that I hadn't even known was closed. We stumbled up to my apartment, barely making it through the door before we were pulling at each other's clothes, learning the geography of each other's bodies with desperate hands and breathless whispers. That night, tangled in my sheets with the city lights painting patterns on the ceiling, I felt more present in my own life than I had in years. The next 3 months were the kind of intense, all-consuming connection that rewrites you. Marcus started spending more nights at my place than his own. We fell into this easy rhythm, him sketching at my kitchen table while I attempted to write again, both of us doing our own thing, but together. We cooked meals that were more ambition than skill, watched movies we'd both seen a dozen times, had the kind of conversations that lasted until 3 in the morning and left us both feeling like we'd discovered something profound. He made me laugh in a way I'd forgotten I could. He challenged me when I was being too safe, too careful with my life. He saw parts of me I'd been hiding and didn't flinch. I fell in love with him. Completely. Terrifyingly. The kind of love that makes you understand why people write songs and poems and stories about it, because there aren't enough normal words to contain everything it makes you feel. But there was something. A shadow that would sometimes cross his face when he thought I wasn't looking. A tension in his shoulders when his phone rang. He'd get these texts that would make him go quiet, and when I asked about them, he'd just say it was family stuff and change the subject. I didn't push. I told myself everyone had their complications, their private struggles. I told myself that love meant giving space for those things. I should have pushed. It was a Sunday morning when everything changed. We'd woken up late, lazy and warm, and had gone to make coffee while Marcus checked his phone. When I came back to the bedroom, he was sitting on the edge of the bed, fully dressed, with this look on his face that made my stomach drop. "I have to go home," he said. "Okay," I replied slowly. "Your place. I can come with you. We can—" "No, home, back to Ohio." The coffee mug felt suddenly heavy in my hand. "For how long?" He didn't answer right away, and in that silence, I felt the ground shifting beneath me. "I don't know. My dad's sick. Really sick. My mom called last night. I need to be there." "Okay," I said again, trying to keep my voice steady. "When do you leave?" "Tomorrow morning." Tomorrow. The word hit me like a physical thing. "That's so soon. Can I help you pack? Can I drive you to the airport? Can I—" "Alex," He stood up, crossed to me, took the coffee mug from my hands and set it down. He held my face between his palms, and his eyes were so sad it hurt to look at them. I need to tell you something. My heart was racing now, fear crawling up my spine. What? My family doesn't know about me, about being gay, about any of it? The words came out rushed, like he had to force them. I've been living this separate life here, and back there, I'm just Marcus who moved to the city for art school and never came back. They don't know anything real about me. So tell them, I said, even though I could already feel where this was going. I'll come with you. I can't. His voice cracked. My dad is dying, Alex. He's got maybe 6 months, and he's this old-school, traditional guy who still thinks the world works the way it did in 1975. And my mom, she's barely holding it together. I can't add this to everything they're dealing with. So what does that mean? I asked, even though I knew. God, I knew. It means I have to go back and be the son they think they have. It means I don't know when I'm coming back or if I can come back while he's still alive. Because if I do, I'll just want to be here with you. And I can't abandon them right now. You're not abandoning them if you have a life, I said, and I could hear the desperation in my own voice. You're allowed to exist, Marcus. You're allowed to be yourself. Not right now, I'm not. He pulled away, started gathering his things that had accumulated in my apartment over the months. His sketchbook from the nightstand, his favorite hoodie from the back of my desk chair, the toothbrush from the bathroom. Each item he picked up felt like he was erasing himself from my life. So that's it? I asked. You're just leaving? I don't have a choice. You do. You always have a choice. You're choosing them over us. That's not fair. None of this is fair. My voice rose, anger mixing with the hurt. You're asking me to just wait around while you go back into the closet? While you pretend this never happened? While you pretend I don't exist? I'm not asking you to wait, he said quietly, and those words hurt worse than anything else. I wouldn't do that to you. You should move on. Find someone who can actually be present in your life. I don't want someone else. I want you. He stopped packing and looked at me, and there were tears on his face now. I want you too. So much it's killing me. But I can't have both. I can't be there for them and be here with you, and they need me right now more than I do, I finished. You can say it. That's not what I meant. But it's true, isn't it? They get the real you, or the version they think is real. And I get what? Phone calls when you can sneak away? Texts you have to delete? I've been someone's secret before, Marcus. I won't do it again. The silence stretched between us, heavy with everything we weren't saying, everything we couldn't fix. That night was our last together. We didn't fight anymore. We just held each other, memorizing the feel of skin on skin, the rhythm of each other's breathing, the way we fit together like we'd been designed for it. We didn't sleep. We just existed in that space between one life and the next, knowing that when morning came, everything would be different. And then it was morning. That morning I told you about at the beginning. The one with the coffee cup and the shadows and the way he looked at me like he was trying to memorize something he was about to lose. I should go, he said, even though his flight wasn't for 3 more hours. Yeah, I agreed, even though I wanted to beg him to stay. We stood there in my kitchen, the space between us feeling like miles, even though we were close enough to touch. He reached out, tucked a strand of hair behind my ear, let his hand linger on my cheek. I love you, he said. I need you to know that. This isn't about not loving you enough. I know, I whispered, even though knowing didn't make it hurt less. Maybe, he started, then stopped. Maybe when things settle. When my dad, after. Maybe we could. Don't, I cut him off. Don't make promises you might not be able to keep. It's easier if we just let it be what it was. He nodded, pulled me into a hug that felt like goodbye, and I'm sorry. And I wish things were different all at once. I breathed him in, tried to imprint the memory of this moment somewhere deep where I could keep it safe. Take care of yourself, Alex, he said against my hair. Keep writing. Don't let the noise win. And then he was gone. The door clicked shut behind him, and I stood there in my kitchen, in the space where we'd made breakfast and kissed and talked about futures we'd never have, and I felt the absence of him like a physical ache. That was 4 months ago. 4 months of silence, of resisting the urge to text him, of seeing his face in every crowd and his shadow in every corner. 4 months of learning how to be alone again, except this time the loneliness was different because I knew exactly what I was missing. I did start writing again, though. This story, actually. Trying to make sense of what we had and what we lost and whether love is enough when the world makes it so hard to just exist as yourself. And then, 2 days ago, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. My hands shook as I opened it. He's gone. Dad passed yesterday. Funeral's this weekend. I know I have no right to ask, but I needed you to know. I think about you every day. I miss you every day. I'm so tired of pretending. I don't know if you'll even want to hear from me, but I had to try. I had to tell you that you were right. I do have a choice, and I'm choosing to stop hiding. I'm choosing me. I'm choosing us if there's still in us to choose. I'm coming back to the city next week. Can we talk? Please? Marcus. I've read that text about 100 times. I've started and deleted replies more times than I can count. Because the thing is, I'm angry. I'm hurt. 4 months is a long time to feel like you don't matter enough, but I also understand. I understand the weight of family and duty and the impossible choices we sometimes have to make. I understand that coming out isn't a single moment, but a series of moments, and sometimes the timing of those moments isn't up to us. And I still love him. God, I still love him so much it terrifies me. So I'm going to meet him next week. I don't know what I'm going to say. I don't know if we can find our way back to what we had, or if too much has broken between us. I don't know if love really is enough to bridge the distance we've traveled in these months apart. But I know I have to try. Because he was right about something that first day in the coffee shop. The things we love, the things that make us feel alive, those aren't kids' dreams. They're the things worth fighting for. Everything else is just noise. And Marcus, with all his complications and his art and his beautiful broken courage, he makes me feel alive. So wish me luck. I'm going to need it.